Members, good afternoon. Just gone past 2:31. We have a technical quorum and now to call the meeting to order. Item number 1, confirmation of minutes of minutes of the 8th meeting held on December the 2nd, CP 2318/16-17. As of now, no proposed amendments have been made. Can I take the minutes as read? No objection, and the minutes are taken as read. Report on meeting with the CS. At the FA panel held on the 5th of December, the Financial Secretary indicated that government officials would not entertain questions from the 4 members facing judicial review. And I told the CS that this would hamper the smooth functioning of the Council, and this will not be in the public interest. The Vice Chair also handed over a letter representing the 26 non-establishment members. The CS wrote a letter to the President. The paper was CB 3202/16-17. I also took the opportunity to ask the administration when the stamp duty amendment bill will be introduced to implement the new ad valorem stamp duty rate for residential property, and the CS said that this would happen as soon as possible. Item 3, business arising from previous council meetings, Legal Service Division report on subsidiary legislation gazetted on December 2nd and tabled in council on December the 7th. Paper LS 17/16-17. Legal advisor, please. Madam Chair, thank you. There are 4 items there. The first one is Port Control Cargo Working Area Amendment Regulation 2016. This is to amend the schedule to introduce the concessionary hourly rate for the first hour at $25. And on the 24th of March 2016, the panel on economic development was briefed, and the trade was also consulted on December 12th, and this would go into effect on January the 30th. Subcommittee. Mr. Pun Siu Ping proposes subcommittee. Any seconder? Any member wishing to join? There will be further circulation to ascertain whether we can form a quorum. A legal advisor, please. Madam Chair, the others have to do with fees and charges, and that's the news registration and distribution amendment regulation. The fees and charges would go up by 8 to 17%, and they have to do with the searching and inspecting the news agency register and so on. According to the administration, this is intended to achieve cost recovery, and both would come into operation on the 31st of March 2017. Subcommittee? If not, please. The last one, Madam Chair, is the Public Health and Municipal Services Ordinance Public Pleasure Grounds Amendment of 4th Schedule number 3 Order 2016. And this is to set aside Tuen Fu Road Community Garden for use as public pleasure ground. And the management will be vested with the director of LCSD, and the places will be designated for this purpose. And this came into operation on the 2nd of December 2016. Do you want to set up a subcommittee on this? If not, just a reminder that for the items without a subcommittee, the deadline for amendment is the 14th of December. I would like to seek your agreement since there is a subcommittee set up for one of the items. In my capacity as chairman of the House, I would move a motion on the 14th of December to extend the scrutiny period to the 8th of February 2017. All right, we proceed accordingly. Item 4, further business for the Council meeting of December 14th. Report number 7/1617 of subsidiary legislation and other instruments. The report on subsidiary legislation and the period for amendment will expire on the 14th of December. No members indicated any intention to speak. Members' motion. Motion to be moved by Mr. Paul TSE under Rule 49B(1)(a) of the Rules of Procedure to censure Dr. Cheng Chung-tai. The wordings have been made available to members vide paper CB 3/2009-16-17. Item 5, position of bills, committees and subcommittees, paper CB 2319. As of 8th of December, Thursday, there are 2 bills committees and 11 subcommittees under the House. 5 subcommittees under the panels. There are 5 committees on the waiting list. Item 6, requests to seek the House Committee's recommendation for an adjournment debate under Rule 16(4) of the Rules of Procedure at the Council meeting of December 14th on the impact of the executive authorities initiating judicial review in relation to the oath-taking of individual electoral members. There are 2 letters from Ms. Claudia Mo and Dr. Kwok Ka-ki. I'd like to remind members that since the High Court is still dealing with the JR regarding the 4 members, and the leave has been granted for the JR, and the hearing will take place on the 15th, on Thursday. According to ROP 4212, a reference shall not be made to a case pending in court in a way that would prejudice the case, and members should concentrate their remarks on whether we should have this adjournment debate and avoid any legal issues. And members are not supposed to have too much discussion on the details of the case. If, in my opinion, members are in breach of ROP 4212, I will stop members forthwith. I also like to remind members that the Legal Service Division has put together a paper Paper LS 19, 16-17, Principles on Application of the Subsidiary Rule in Proceedings of the Council and its Committees. I'd like to call upon legal advisor to brief us on the paper first. Madam Chair, thank you. The paper outlines the principles on the application of the subsidiary rule in proceedings of the Council. As Madam Chair said, this is a reflection of ROP 4212. While members enjoy freedom of speech and debate, in order not to prejudice any proceedings or legal proceedings, there is this restriction imposed upon members, and this is applicable to the council meetings. For committees, unless otherwise directed by the chairman, this will also be applicable to the committees. Now, how does this apply? It is the president or the chairman of the committees to make the decision. Now, how does this apply? We have regard to the local and overseas experience regarding the application of the subsidiary rule. Paper LS 19. There are 4 principles that are set out on page 2. Perhaps I'd like to brief members in brief terms. Basically, when members are making speeches, they should refrain from making any references to matters awaiting adjudication in court, and they're not supposed to comment on such matters or draw any conclusion. Say, for instance, for judicial review proceedings, this is still pending in court. The sincerity or the propriety of the oath-taking would be decided upon by the court, and in the light of previous experience, when members take the floor to speak, they should avoid commenting on those cases. So this sub judice rule will not stop members speaking on the macro issues, perhaps on the policy matters. As per usual practice, I call upon the two proposers to speak for 3 minutes each, and members who would like to speak on the subject will be given 2 minutes. Just call them out. Well, the administration is engaging in judicial review and disqualification proceedings, and these there are 4 seats involved, and these members are representing the voters. The government is trying to overrule the mandate. The government is trying to overrule the electoral rules. The government would like to rewrite the history of the election, and the executive branch is ignoring the legislative council. They are sidelining the president of the council. I think we need to have a good debate. The wording of my motion is that the implications arising from the executive branch's decision to seek judicial review on the oath-taking, and there would be implications on what is left of the credibility of the council. That the executive is resorting to judiciary means to clamp down on the legislature. I don't really want to be verbose here. Dr. Kwokaki, Madam Chair, I agree with the legal advisor regarding the points that were highlighted. My submission is sufficiently clear. We don't have any intention of engaging in any debate over what is before the court. Whatever the verdict is going to be under BL 73, all legislative members have the obligation to raise questions regarding the administration's work, and they would have the duty to engage in debates on policy matters. This is the statutory duty that we councillors have. In this particular incident, quite inevitably, it would have implications on the work of the council and also the doctrine of separation of powers, and that there would be a fundamental impact on this. As far as the LegCo is concerned, certainly there would be quite inevitable impact. On an important subject like this, I have taken the decision of moving an adjournment debate.
So that we can have the earliest opportunity to have a debate in council, so that members will have a chance to speak. And I don't have any intention to comment on cases in sub judice. This should not be commented upon, and this should not affect legislators' power to have a say in a council meeting either. Mr. Jeffrey Lam, I don't think we should discuss it here, because the Secretary for Justice has already taken out application for judicial review against these 4 people, and the cases are now in sub judice. If we intervene, then it's disrespect towards the court, and it gives the perception to the public that we're trying to give directions to the court and we have the intention to influence the ruling of the court. Some members here keep saying that this is political persecution. And I want to ask, what do you mean by political persecution or political prosecution? These are cases of judicial review. The fact is that these people, it's not the case that these people have made the oath in accordance with the rules and laws, and the government tried to apply for judicial review. We know full well what happened. Mr. Lam, please do not comment on what happened during the day when the oath was administered. Focus on the matter in hand. I did not make any comment. I just said that we all know full well what happened. And if by saying we all know full well what happened, it amounts to a comment, I think, Chairman, you should be fair in chairing this meeting. If some people think that because of the capacity they're in, they can flout the law, they can put pressure on the court, I think that amounts to a political prosecution. Mr. Gary Chen, DAB opposes to the requests of Ms. Mo and Dr. Kwok Ki for the motion for the adjournment debate, because on Thursday there is going to be a court hearing. We do not want to talk about details of the court, and if during the debate we mention details of the case, we're worried that we will affect the court's ruling, and it's not fair to the public. And I want to take the opportunity to say to Ms. Mo that they always talk about separation of powers, and it should not be just words. They should show that they respect separation of powers and the independence of our judiciary. And in the letter, Ms. Mo said that they have completely sidelined the legislature. There is a pending case. It's for the court to make a ruling and to give judgment. It's not for us to do that. And I don't agree with what Dr. Kwok said, that this will inevitably have an impact on the constitutional status of the LegCo. I hope that Pan-Democrats will respect the independence of the judiciary and should not ask for a German debate next week. Mr. Martin Liu, of course we can talk about the oath-taking of some members, and I welcome a chance to debate on this matter so that the public will know what is going on. However, the cases are in sub judice, and a hearing has been fixed on Thursday to hear the administration's application for judicial review. If we have a debate on Wednesday, there will be an adverse impact on the court's ruling, and this will also give a perception that the LegCo is trying to intervene or interfere. You always talk about safeguarding independence of the judiciary. I think it's for the public to tell whether you actually believe in that by showing that you do. The court should not be put under any pressure or any interference from anywhere, from the LegCo or from public comment. That's why we have this rule. I think it's against the law if we make comments on cases in sub judice. And I don't want legislators to make use of the powers and privilege to make comments when a normal member of the public will have committed an offence. And under ROP 41(2), reference shall not be made to a case pending in a court of law. And I want to say that if we have a debate on cases that are pending in a court of law, it is very difficult to avoid making comments on it. And it will be very difficult to enforce ROP 40(2). Mr. Charles Mock, this is a major issue. It is an important issue to Hong Kong. We now ask for an adjournment debate, and I want to talk about 3 points. First, as some members have said, separation of powers. But it doesn't mean that we can't discuss about the behavior of the executive authorities, including acts that affect the legislature. This has interfered in decisions made by the legislature, and it gives the impression that they have a political agenda. The power of the legislature has been undermined. We're talking about members who have re-administered the oath and completed with their oath taking. This affects the legislature's autonomy. And I also want to talk about public mandate, and that should be supreme. The 4 legislators have public mandate. They have been returned by voters. An adjournment debate is important. Today, we don't have any government officials. What we can do is to speak our mind, to try to get a chance to talk about the matter. But what else can we do? The CE said, I didn't say anything about the case. I didn't talk about the details of the case. What Jeffrey Lam said was the facts of the case, but I did not mention any facts of the case. What did I say that amounts to facts of the case? What did I say that amounts to facts of the case? I really did not. You can't frame me. You can't frame me. Chairman, you should make a decision. You should make a ruling. I did not talk about facts of the case. I was only talking about what the administration said. The administration said they would communicate with me, but Siwa Leung said the same, but we don't see anything because he's afraid to answer our questions. Dr. Cheng Chung-tai. First, I fully understand the legal advisor's view in relation to the principle of the subsidiary rule. I know one thing or two about our Constitution. I don't think this rule should exist in vacuum from our Constitution, and that should be a premise before it's applied. That premise should be a proper procedure, and that is about but that should be a proper procedure as enshrined in our Constitution. The administration took the initiative to take out a judicial review. I think that it is no longer a proper procedure. There is a gray area. The President and the Chairman of the House Committee may exercise a discretion. But what criteria will they use? If we were America, the United States of America, then they would consider the first rule of the Constitution. That is, what they should not put in place any rules or laws that deprive people of freedom of speech. But if we use the U.S. Perspective, it's the First Amendment. But in the Hong Kong perspective, we should safeguard the basic law of the rules related to basic rights enjoyed by Hong Kong people and also the freedom of speech. I support the 2 members' requests. Mr. Junius Ho. If we talk about this topic, I think, well, is it something to do with the subsidiary rule? People have been vague. But if we talk about the case, more or less, we will infringe upon the case. And Mr. Charles Mok was quite adamant that he did not talk about facts of the case. But everything was about facts of the case, and we should avoid talking about the case. And if you're really concerned if the chief executive has undermined or infringed the power of the legislature, well, we can have academic discussion. But if it's not an academic discussion, and if you talk about the 2 or the 4 members, whether they have committed misconduct, well, then you will inevitably talk about details of the case. And it's very clear in the law that the chief executive, under the Basic Law 48, to have taken out the case, and it's his right to do so. And as to whether the executive authorities can do something about the legislature, well, in the CFI and the Court of Appeal decision, everything have been made clear. I don't have to tell you that. If you don't know, you can ask lawyers, you can ask barristers, you can ask law professors in the Hong Kong U. We don't have to talk about this today. You can't talk about simple principles like the day follows the night. What I don't want to see is that you want to make use of this opportunity to talk about something that you should not. Mr. Jeremy Tam, I think we have to make clear whether we're talking about the details of the case or our stance or attitude. The chief executive talked about day and night. During the day, he talked about making up with Legislative Council. In the evening, he went ahead to try to disqualify the 4 members. I think it's a matter of attitude. In the past month or so, what we saw, we could see what was happening, whether the relationship between the legislature and the executive have got better or worse. We're talking about relations between the legislature and the executive. And someone trampled on the legislature. It's not about the case. That's very clear. We have to be fair. We're talking about the relation between the legislature and the executive, and whether someone trampled on the legislature's authorities. If we are not talking about the, if you don't want to talk about the case, you don't have to. So if you press the button to speak, you want to talk about the relations between the legislature and the executive. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done so. So I support the requests of Ms. Mo and Dr. Kwok, Mr. Wong Kwok Kin, to improve the relations. I think is a completely separate matter from the judicial review cases. According to court rulings, well, indeed, the chief executive have the duty to enforce the basic law, and it is within his right to take out judicial review against some members. It's not a matter of the executive authorities challenging the legislature. It's not as serious as that. It's no matter that we talk about the relations between the executive and the legislature. But as the chairman said, it's quite time sensitive. On Thursday, there will be a hearing, and on Wednesday, we have a discussion.
And this will make people misunderstand that we are bringing pressure to bear on the judiciary, and it gives people the impression that we are being confrontational towards the court. I think if we are minded to discuss it, we might wish to leave it until the court is done with the proceedings. It doesn't make any major difference whether we talk about now or whether we talk about it a little bit later. Madam Chair, the FTU doesn't support this adjournment debate. Mr. Kenneth Leung. 41(2) of the ROP, we have to have respect that. We also have to bear in mind the subsidiary rule. Given these two principles, there is still plenty of room for us to debate this. We can talk about the relationship between the executive and the legislature. And also we can discuss the arrangement of the proceedings. On Monday, when we had the FA panel, an official said that he wouldn't answer questions from certain members. I think the chairman of the House Committee should enter into an MOU with the administration that the administration should entertain questions from these members. I won't name them. And in any meetings, any motion or any question should be entertained, and this is important. We don't want to hear something in the morning and something else in the afternoon, and inconsistent remarks from different top officials. That this is going to be unhealthy, and this is detrimental to the relationship between the executive and the legislature. There is so much that can be debated, and I do think that there is plenty of room for us to have the adjournment debate. I'm sure that the President would have the wisdom to sit in judgment as to whether any remarks that would be in breach of the subsidiary rule. And I hope that in the adjournment debate we would be able to have some fruitful discussion. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, C.Y. Leung has stated his intention. He said he has the duty to launch judicial proceedings to disqualify the members. We think that this is not right. Why can't we say so? Why do you say that we're talking about the details of the case? I'm not sure whether the pro-establishment members have made any preparation. Dr. Martin Lau, he's stepped out, hasn't he? Now, Sunday Times versus United Kingdom, 1979, there was an injunction. If a case involves many people, if a case involves freedom of speech, then there should be an injunction. There are 4 members who are facing disqualification. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of voters who put us here. It has to do with whether the voting would be more important or whether the oath taking would be more important. We're not asking the judge to do anything. I think to be pro-establishment members, you have to be worthy of your role. If certain remarks are not good enough for you, you can stop them. Why are you sitting there, Madam Chair? I support the adjournment debate. We can debate why the government chooses to do this, and whether the administration would guarantee that they won't do anything like that in future. They have the discretion, they are being selective. Why can't we have a debate on it? Dr. Fernando Cheung, Madam Chair. There is a judicial review which would have the prospect of unseating 4 members, and the election result would be changed. For us not to be able to debate on it, would be ridiculous. Now, before the court case was over and done with, the NPTSE interpreted the law And I think they have really sidelined BL 104 even before the court case was over and done with. Even before the court handed down the judgment, there was debate, there was discussion. They went so far as to amend BL 104. Dr. Martin Lau went up there, fine. But for the council to debate the issue in which 4 members are going to be subject to judicial review, and we're not supposed to do so, don't you have any principles? In the previous case, there was no subsidiary rule. Here, in this council, if you want to debate on the administration's attempt to overrule the result of the election for the 4 seats, you're not allowing us to do so. Don't you have any common sense? If you say that the NPCSE can do anything that they can get away with, and the council cannot, then that's your understanding of the Legislative Council. This is not my understanding of the Legislative Council. We are representing the voters. If the fundamental interests are at stake, we have to speak up. Mr. Kwok Wai Keung, well, whether the debating level is high enough, I don't propose to comment on it. If you talk about the rules here, the observance of the rules, long hair is the worst one. We do have to observe the rules here. There is a judicial review which is going to go ahead, and many members are intending to influence the decision-making process of the court. Whether this is intentional or not, I think we have to avoid suspicion in this regard. If you have comments to make, please save them until after the court case is out of the way. Now, whether whether this is disqualification, I don't think you should talk about disqualification. This is only a judicial review. We're not sure whether it's going to lead to disqualification or not. The JR happened because something happened during the oath-taking process. And in order to fulfill its constitutional duty to implement the basic law, the Hong Kong SL government lodged the judicial proceeding. I think it is only right, it's only legal for them to do so. I don't think the pandams should stand logic on his head and say anything that would be undermining the court case. I think we have to tread carefully here. Mr. Michael Look, Madam Chair, the opposition members are confounding the concepts here. I think it is only obvious here. They're confusing the JR and the disqualification. And Mr. Jeremy Tam said that the chief executive is disqualifying the members. How can they do so? They are seeking judicial review on the qualification of the members. If you get these fundamental concepts confused, how can we have any meaningful discussion? I think we cannot talk about this without talking about the Leung and Yao cases. The judge said that under the common law, the non-interference principle cannot interfere with the court in looking at the basic law. The court wouldn't undermine the authority and the function of the Legislative Council and the mandate of the Council. The court is there to make sure that LegCo and the councillors would act in accordance with the basic law. And under LegCo Ordinance 73(1), the SJ has the power to lodge legal proceedings regarding member status. So the whole process is constitutional and legal. I don't see anything that should be debated here. Of course, whether the 4 members' behaviors would be in breach of the law, it would be the prerogative of the court. Under 41 of the ROP, we have to observe the subsidiary rule, and this is an important rule under the common law that we have to abide by. Ms. Ho Kai-ming? Madam Chair, now we're not any Joe Block sitting here. We are legislative councillors. What we say would be subject to the monitoring of the whole of Hong Kong. If you want to have an adjournment debate, just to air our views, then Mr. Ho, hang on a sec, please. Madam Mo, point of order. Well, I think that he talked about someone from Ao Tau Kok. This is offensive. Ms. Mo. Well, I want you to rule whether he is being offensive. Well, Mr. Ho did not name any particular members being a housewife from Ao Tau Kok. Now you're offending the residents from Kowloon East. Order, please. Mr. Ho, please. Why don't you talk about the Ablay Chow accent? The housewives are from Ao Tau Kok. Why do you say I'm being offensive? Now we do need to have good justification to engage in an adjournment debate. Ms. Mo, point of order. He is being discriminatory. He talked about someone from the Hong Kong Cafe. There ought to be a good justification to engage in any adjournment debate. I heard from the opposition members citing the strained relationship between the executive and the legislature, the attitude of the chief executive. I don't think these are cogent reason for us to spend time on this kind of debate. One of the members said that this has to do with the adequacy of the system. I beg to differ. I think this has to do with unlawful behavior. If someone has committed wrongdoing, you can't blame this on the system. And this is not a good reason for us to debate on this particular issue. Mr. Wishiwai? Madam Chair? The pro-establishment members mentioned the constitutional reason. There are 4 members who are subject to judicial review, and there will be implications on the work of the council. The fundamental issue is why does the government want to take up this challenge? Of course, at the end of the day, it would be for the court to hand down the judgment. But the crux of the matter is why is it that the administration chooses to be involved in this? I think with the governance of Hong Kong, everything has to be in accordance with the rules and procedures. If there are many who are raising the prospect of judicial review, that would be another matter altogether.
Why is it the case that the Hong Kong SARG decides to play this role and take the initiative and selectively target certain legislators? And the entire adjournment debate is a debate 75 minutes for members to make comments and speak their minds afterwards. That's it. It is a chance for members to express their views and also show their stance. It's only 75 minutes, an hour and a half to deal with this issue. I believe that if we spend 1.5 hours to talk about the government's behavior to selectively target certain legislators in a way to change the election result is highly appropriate. We've spent quite a lot of time on it, and we still have Mr. Horace Chung to speak on this matter. If you want to speak, please press the press to speak button. Otherwise, we'll draw a line here. Mr. Chung. Well, there are lots of us sitting here having this meeting, but I realize that it seems that we're talking about many different matters. Some members say, in effect, that we're not allowed to talk about the judicial review and whether the government is right or wrong in taking out the judicial review. I think we're here to talk about whether we should have an adjournment debate on Wednesday. At the outset, the legal advisor said very clearly that when it comes to the sub judice rule, whether it is appropriate to have this adjournment debate. Some members said that they didn't mean to comment on the case. However, Ms. Small, the wording of your motion is to talk about the impact of the executive authority initiating judicial review proceeding in relation to the oath-taking of individual legislative members. So if we don't talk about the executive, if we don't talk about judicial review proceedings, if we don't talk about individual legislative members, then what do we talk about? Inevitably, we will touch on these three things in the debate. So the case is sub judice. Of course, we will infringe upon the sub judice rule. We have to wait for the court to complete the proceedings before we have a full discussion. And then this rule should be respected by the legislature. Mr. Ip Kin Yun. Two members made a request for an adjournment debate, not to talk about the facts of the case, but to talk about the executives using public power, using public money to intervene in the eligibility of legislators, whether it is appropriate to do so, whether it is acceptable. Just now, Mr. Horace Chung talked about one thing. Of course, we will touch on the executive, we'll touch on the legislature. It's our duty to deal with this. It's simple. From the entire matter, we see that the judiciary is dealing with the case. But the nature of the case is not just about the law. At the same time, it is a political matter. The judiciary is not there to deal with political matters. It's something for the legislature to deal with. It's an adjournment debate. It provides a platform for discussion. We don't even vote on it. It's just for members to express our views. Whether you're for or against these four members, you can express your views on this matter so that the public will know better about the entire situation, will know about individual members' stance, the crux of the matter. And I believe that the legislative discussion is only part of discussion in society, and it will help to resolve this political issue. I support the request. Mr. Ray Chan. Thank you. Anyone, including the government or members of the public, at any time, if they feel like it, if they find a problem, they can, in relation to oath-taking of officials, legislators, or even judges, take out judicial review proceedings. And this is not just about the four members. There are also other government officials or legislators who are involved in judicial review proceedings taken out by members of the public. Friday, after office hours, the chief executive and the DOJ said that, well, we have to get this done. This is a political gesture that cannot be denied. Well, for CY Leung to try to get re-elected, he doesn't have to fund these activities. He uses public money, but this is a major issue of the public, where the interest of the general public, the interest of CY Leung, whether he will get re-elected. Monday morning, involving John Zhang, is another farce. I'm not going to spend time talking about that. It's a complete mess. If this is not political gesture, well, in 2012, it's the same chief executive, the same secretary for justice. How come there was no such proceedings? There was no interpretation of the basic law. There was no change of the original intent of the basic law. Obviously, this is a political gesture. It aims at exerting influence. Under ROP 41(2), it says is for the president or the chairman to decide whether something said is prejudice to that case. But we are here to talk about the political operation and also the impact on Hong Kong. Mr. Paul TSE. Yes. Well, this is under 16.4, and under 16.5 it says that there should be not less than 7 clear days notice. And just now, someone talked about there is no proper procedure. But when it comes to something like this, he's often a participant of such improper procedure. Under the basic law, it said very clearly that the chief executive and the S4J has the duty and the power to do that. So in reply to what Mr. Wu said, that it is the duty of the government to do that, and they should do better as well. Of course, we have freedom of speech, and we have the legislative powers and privilege or ordinance and protection, because we are given a free rein here to talk about what we say. We should exercise self-restraint, and we should subject ourselves to the subsidiary rule and also Rule 41(2), and we should not give a freedom of speech in the council a free rein, otherwise it will be unacceptable. And this is a very low threshold. The threshold can be easily met, so Rule 41(2) should not be neglected without very good reason. And in relation to all cases, including the previous 2 members, as someone said, that it involves a separation of powers, and that is very important matter in the case. Under such circumstance, inevitably and unavoidably, these issues will be touched on, and there is no urgency. We have plenty of time, plenty of opportunities to have a discussion on the relations between the legislature and the legislature and the executive. We will have plenty of time to talk about it. There is no need to do it now at the risk of violating the subsidiary rule. Mr. Cheng Kim-Paul. I hope my members will cherish and protect the image of the legislature. Some people shout at the top of their voice separation of powers, but it gives the impression that they say one thing and do another. We have to ask ourselves, why do we have to choose the time just before a court hearing to have this adjournment debate? This will inevitably give the impression to the public that we want to exert pressure on the court and we want to interfere. And if leave is granted by the court, of course it's with good reason. Why can't we wait for the proceedings to complete before we have a debate? You should take away from any risks of suspicion. There is not much left in the image of the legislature. Please cherish it and don't trample on it anymore. I will now ask Ms. Claudia Mo to speak before I ask Dr. K.K. Kwok to speak, before we put it to a vote. 1 minute, Ms. Mo. The President, Andrew Leung, has a catchphrase, sit down, please sit down. The other one of the catchphrase is, my ruling is not to be debated upon. Well, the ROP may give him the power to do that. But in relation to the judicial review proceedings, the President was named a co-defendant or respondent, a co-respondent. Did he think he was sitting in the court of final appeal, saying that sit down, and my ruling is not to be debated upon? It seems that the judiciary is used as a political weapon, is widely covered in international media, and there is no chance for the LegCo to have a discussion. And this is the only time, barely called a chance for us to say a word or two. And we're here to talk about whether we should have a debate on this. Your time is up, Dr. Kokaki. At the outset, I said I agree with what the legal advisor said, that we have to be very careful of ROP 41(2), that we should be mindful of the subsidiary rule. I have never linked this debate with the court proceedings. However, I have heard from the pro-establishment. I don't want to comment on their quality and their standard, but I still find it quite appalling. They don't care to protect and uphold LegCo's constitutional status. They don't mind that separation of powers have been undermined. I just want to have a German debate as soon as possible. I don't want to use this debate to influence the ruling of the court. Regrettably, as you know that with the current composition of the LegCo, the result, your time is up. 23 members who have expressed their views, and I've heard different views. And I would like to put this to a vote. That is, whether members will support having a German debate in the Council meeting of 14th of December 2016 on the impact of the executive authorities initiating judicial review proceedings in relation to the oath-taking of individual LegCo members. So whether members will support having a German debate at the Council meeting of the 14th of December this year on the impact of the executive authorities initiating judicial review proceedings in relation to the oath-taking of individual LegCo members. Ms. Claudia Mo claims the division. The bell will be rung for 5 minutes.
有關於議事規例84條個問
ROP 84. If there is any issue of pecuniary interest, then members should refrain from voting. Now, the case might involve the disqualification of some members, and there may be some pecuniary interest involved, like the court fees and so on. I think, Madam Chair, you should clarify ROP 84 would apply. Yes, I call upon the clerk to brief members on the requirements. It is now 4 minutes 17 seconds. Members are requested to vote on whether there should be an adjournment debate on the judicial review initiated by the administration in relation to the oath-taking of members.
All
right, 5 minutes is up. Mr. Paul TSE would like to seek clarification on ROP 84. What members are called upon to consider is whether we should have an adjournment debate on this very subject. Ms. Claudia Mo and Dr. Kwokaki move this adjournment debate, and members are only expressing their views. There is no need to put this to the vote. So I don't think we are touching on ROP 84 regarding the pecuniary interest and the requirement to vacate the chamber. Yes, I think we ought to be cautious. There is a likelihood that we might impinge upon the result of the judicial proceeding. All right, the clerk has made it very clear. Now we proceed to vote.
我唔使投票嚇，係大家係咪已經完成表決？
Are you done with your votes? Do you need more time? The clerk has already elucidated on the rules of procedure, and all members can take part in the voting. Do you want more time to get on with your votes? If not, please check your votes. If there are no questions, voting now, and will the clerk please display the results? 22 for, 35 against, no abstention. The question has been negatived. Since this has been negatived, that's it for this item. We don't have an AOB items. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.